you talk the language of solutions. You don't talk the language of product. So health insurance first, life insurance second, and at an earlier age, the cost is also lesser. And the third is start an SIP. That's the first simplest starting point. And I'll tell you why an SIP.
Today, we talk about simplifying investment strategies, breaking things down into first principles, and also a lot about cultural aspects when it comes to investing. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation between Kalpen Parek and Nishchay AG, co-founder and CEO of Jar. Hi, Kalpen.
Hi, Akash.
Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Jar Xchange. We are excited to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me.
Kalpen, we'll start with a couple of fun things. We wanted to just put you on a spot and see how much do you know about the Gen Z finance lingo that we all keep talking about. So
Gen Z is the current generation.
Gen Z is the current.
So which one will I be?
You will
We are
be
millennials.
Y or
There is a Gen Z term called boomer for people like us. But yeah, so we'll have some things on the screen and you have to tell us if you know what they are. You know what is FIRE? It's a very popular philosophy that people preach and follow.
It is financial independence and retire early.
Super.
Yeah, that's right.
What do you think about it?
I think that's exactly the reason for our existence, that we help our consumers and investors to achieve this. So it's a very powerful concept, and I think anything written down in 4 alphabets is condensing the reason of our existence into one word, and the word is also nice.
It was Dink.
I knew it, but now I don't know.
You knew it, even I didn't know it before this. Nishchay, any thoughts?
Do it not knowing.
It's double income.
Double income,
No kids.
Yes.
There's a newer version of this. It's called Dinked. There's a D in front of it.
Okay, and what does that mean?
Double income, no kids, dogs.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Henry, this is a tough one.
This is a tough one, yeah.
Any idea, Nishchay?
No.
No? This is a lot of people, when I was talking to people in office, they're like, yeah, we are Henry. High earning, not rich yet.
Not rich yet. You knew about it on your own?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So we are in the same.
I'm a boomer. I've been classified as
not an
boomer.
outlier.
Okay, do you know about these rules, Kalpen? 60, 20, 20, 70, 20, 10, 40, 20, 10. There are so many rules.
So I've forgotten. I know there are many rules, so you keep forgetting the old rules.
Do you follow any one of them?
Yeah, I have a very simple rule that I follow, that I earn a certain level of income. I have a certain level of expenditure, which is not out of whack because born and brought up and culturally trained that way. So large amount of money remains idle, which eventually goes into my saving and investing. So I just follow that simple thumb rule.
But do you think one rule fits all? Is there
Obviously not, because each person has very different context, very different environment, very different needs, risk appetite, profile is different. So one rule cannot. But I think very holistically, the simple framework that if you save first before just spending, and if you don't spend recklessly and ensure that every month some amount gets saved, that should be a universal rule, according to me, for us to achieve financial independence and a better financial future. So that generically is a sound rule which should apply universally to all. Now the formula, the nuances, the ratios can be different for different people. And the other rule that I have learned, I teach that to, I can't say teach, but I talk to my son about it, is in the formula of compounding, the variable t is raised to the power, and the variable r is next to plus, and the variable p has multiplication. Now between plus, multiplication and exponential is obviously more powerful. So time is a very, very powerful variable. It took me a lot of time to know that time matters more. 15 साल लगा to know कि time सबसे ज़्यादा matter करता है. And that is a big insight that I've taken too long to learn. And I think most people underappreciate that.
One of the interesting things about these financial rules is a lot of such theories are in floating around. Many people are aware of these ideas, but the principle with which they live
Behind
is
them.
no, it's not even 60 20 20. It's not like 100 120. Well, it's 100 कमाऊंगा 120 खर्चा करूंगा and 20 रुपया इधर कर्जा में आएगा नहीं तो पापा भेजेंगे. That's the early days of life. So it's quite interesting that how these rules will be ingested, acted upon, adopted, and all of those things. It's going to be very interesting because access to information is at a different level
All-time high.
altogether.
All-time high.
It's an all-time high, and it's still shaping up. You don't know what medium and what language is more going to be more impactful at a universal level. And that's going to be very interesting.
And funny enough that so we at Jar had made one video just as a spoof kind of a video where he said, I have 100 rupees today, and I go on the internet and I see that how do I invest it? What do I do with my salary? And one video says 70 30 20, one video says 40 20 20, one video. So in the end we were like कि दिमाग खराब हो गया, अपनी अक्ल लगाओ, अपने हिसाब से जो invest कर सकते हो करो. So yeah, we're just trying to make that video. But anyway, let's go forward. Yeah. Kalpen, we did a small vox pop, couple of vox pops, and asked people around Bangalore and Bombay. We asked them how much money do you need to retire? Because that's one question everybody keeps talking about, especially young people. कि retirement पे कितना पैसा चाहिए? So we'll see that video, then I'll come to the question.
What's the ideal amount for retirement according to you?
It's never enough.
Some smart friend of mine has told me, make sure you have 5 crores before you hang the books.
20 crores. Q?
People have very, very different views about how much do they need for retirement, and we've gone around and asked hundreds of people. When we ask why are you saying this number, is where the problem comes. How to think about retirement planning for fun?
Very deep question. Also very boring part of our life, but most important part of our life, because we all, let's say, will work for up to the age of 60, 65. And the way healthcare everywhere in the world is improving, if we end up living till 1995, but the last 30 years of our lives end up being a zero salary life, it would be very difficult because it straight away impacts the morale. I'll give you my own example. You know, my dad, he's like a hero for me because of the way he, grew up in life and worked hard and, saved reasonable money. Exactly 2 days after retirement, in day-to-day parts of life, I have seen some bit of confidence coming down because he realized that अब पैसा आने वाला नहीं है. शहर में एक जगह से दूसरी जगह जाना है तो normally he would have said कि cab book कर लेते, तो 2 बार he will think. Even though enough saving is there and enough money is there for him to not even think about those things. In India, some of us are blessed to be a part of that 1% where we don't have to think about retirement because maybe we've been very fortunate and lucky to be at the right place, right time. But as a country, generally there is lifestyle inflation of 8 to 10%, which means हर साल हमारे 100 रुपये की जो इनकम या 100 रुपये का एसेट है उसकी वैल्यू 92 हो रही है, and next year it becomes 84 and then 76. So inflation is eating away. It's a silent killer. It's a silent tax. पता नहीं चलता है, and by the time समझ आता है और पता चलता है तब कमाने का जरिया बंद हो जाता है because by the time you're closer to your inflation. So these things are very unusual or boring questions when you can do something about it, and they become very pertinent when you can actually do nothing about it. So it's very important to think about retiring, number one. Number two, the framework is कि अगर retirement पे 100 रुपये का कॉर्पस है और अगर एवरेज 8% से रिटर्न बनेगा, फॉर एग्जांपल इन फ्यूचर, historically our markets and different asset classes have earned between 10 to 15% return, but conservatively if you are able to earn 8%, 100 पे हर साल 8 रुपया हमारा बनेगा. अब वो 8 रुपया 20 साल, 30 साल, 40 साल बाद कितना इनफ है to meet our lifestyle needs and expenses, assuming our lifestyles also will change. So that is the math to be done. Now anything where maths comes in 10, 20, 30 years later is very difficult to process, and these are things you can't really visualize कि 10 साल बाद inflation ऊपर होगा नीचे होगा. So you budget for the worst and plan for the worst. हर 6 से 7 साल में expense double होने वाला है. तो आज अगर मेरा lifestyle expense मान लो 5 लाख रुपया है साल का, and in 20 years if I retire, it's not going to be 5 lakhs, it will be roughly around 20 lakhs, just about sheer compounding of inflation. So सोच ये होनी चाहिए कि हमारे पास जो सेविंग्स आज है और हर साल बनेगी, उसका जो ग्रोथ है, दैट शुड बी एटलीस्ट हायर देन द ग्रोथ ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन by 3-4%. Only then you are able to increase purchasing power. Most people in our country forget increasing purchasing power. वो retain भी नहीं हो पाता है because inflation is eating it away. And hence I'm very happy to have this conversation that you're doing it in a language that the average consumer will understand.
We spend significant amount of time talking to our users who are very young and represent real India, the middle India. What we learned is India is right now the most optimistic country. Indian youngsters are the most optimistic lot out there. The way they think कि मुझे क्या होगा, मैं आगे जाके ज़्यादा ही कमाने वाला हूँ. I'm going to earn more in my future. So I will think about retirement much later in the stage. That is one thing. Second thing is everyone speaks about that. They say 7-8% 5 साल में double हो जाएगा. All of those things is right. Inflation happens at a 8% at an industry average level.
Individual
But if
level
you
could be
take
different.
at an individual expense level, for example, if someone is 35 and he is looking at inflation at 5-6%, and if his net investment is growing at say 10% or 8%, 2-3% beating the market inflation index, but 15 years down the line his biggest expense is going to come from say medical, and medical inflation is happening at 30-35%.
Absolutely.
How is your going to expense is going to shape up in each and every category of your life, health, entertainment, education, everything, and then if you plan the retirement it happens, but it's way too complex to be very honest.
Correct.
Aspirations and desires and luxury becomes your uh, basic needs after certain years. Next level of aspirations, you don't even know how it's going to inflate in the future.
So I am personally experiencing, with aging parents, as you see, after 70, 75, if there is deterioration in health or some illness or some sickness, I'm going through, my mother's cancer treatment. She's recovering very well now. The annual cost is almost as much as half of our entire lifetime savings. Now, it's a very sad comment to make. I can't trivialize. The fact is, if you have not saved for health insurance, and if she had not done health insurance, and she had done it only because she was herself working in an insurance company, today, for her on her own savings, she would have just blown up the entire savings because the treatment has gone on for 2.5-3 years. And in these 3 years, the total cost is much, much higher. So sometimes it's very important to visualize not a rosy picture, but a thorny picture. And that will hopefully make us start thinking. And funnily, many years back, a colleague of mine had mentioned that it's boring, 7%, 8%, 12%, as you said. But even if you look at movies, the movies I have grown up watching, the movie tickets were between 10 rupees to 15 rupees. Today they are 300 to 400 rupees. One movie which I watch very frequently with my son is Hera Fairy, which is about extortion. तो ये जब मूवी बनी थी उस ज़माने में एक्सटॉर्शन 50 लाख का होता था. आज की मूवीज़ में जब किडनैपिंग होता है तो 5-6 करोड़ की बात करते हैं. तो इवन किडनैपर्स हैव अंडरस्टूड इन्फ्लेशन. So as consumers, if we can learn from our movies, because they are talking about times and trends, and उनको भी पता है खर्चा बढ़ रहा है. So we need to just recognize it sooner and start planning.
But the thing is, I think what I've observed is that whenever you talk about beyond a 3-year scenario, that's where we fail, right? What does retirement mean? Because one of the things about FIRE when I was talking to people is everybody talks about कि जल्दी से पैसा कमा लेते फिर retire हो जाएंगे. But उसके बाद क्या करना है?
See, again, I'm very fortunate, very blessed to be in an industry where, because I talk and speak about these concepts, I have automatically taken care of my financials and my saving needs and my investments. And for me, ideally, I don't want to retire, but I want to remain mentally and physically healthy and fit, and till the last day, do things which I feel I'm making either a difference to myself or to people around me, whether it is my work, my colleagues, my family, my friends, be relevant. And I think, what does retirement mean? The answer to this also changes every 5 years. A few years back, it meant a better house. Again, few years back, it became, a small home in the hills with a nice bookshop where I can read. So I was in the craze of collecting books. अभी कुछ दिनों से लग रहा है कि ये सब futile है. As you rightly said, information इतना बढ़ रहा है that there is no space left in the mind. Today it is all about saying that how can I be, fitter and more healthier. So now health has become a more important aspiration. So these goals will keep changing, and very difficult to plan today what is one final goal. But all I want is that I should be able to do what I want to do without thinking twice, and be able to decide, not need to think two times about opening a menu card and seeing कि right hand side पे क्या है and seeing more on the left hand side.
सर एक ट्रेडिशनल फाइनेंशियल एडवाइस बताओ which you think is not true, जो हमारे probably पेरेंट्स और ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स हमें बताते थे which is not true.
सो आई थिंक एक ट्रेडिशनल एडवाइस ये है कि पैसा सेव करना चाहिए. ये अच्छी एडवाइस है, बट थोड़ी इनकम्प्लीट है. बिकॉज सेव करने से आप खर्चा कम करोगे, पैसा बचा के रखोगे, घर में रखोगे या बैंक अकाउंट में पड़ा रहेगा या ट्रेडिशनल इंस्ट्रूमेंट में पड़ा रहेगा लाइक अ फिक्स डिपॉजिट, बट उसका परचेजिंग पावर नहीं बढ़ेगा. तो सेवर से इन्वेस्टर बनना ज़रूरी है. सो द ट्रेडिशनल एडवाइस विच इज़ नॉट अ गुड एडवाइस इज़ बी अ सेवर. आई वुड से बी एन इन्वेस्टर.
ठीक है सर, एक और वीडियो देखते हैं एंड देन आई लीड इनटू द नेक्स्ट सेट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस.
Mutual funds or SIP?
Mutual funds.
Why?
Good returns. Mutual fund.
Isn't both the same?
SIP.
SIP. म्यूचुअल फंड्स. म्यूचुअल फंड और SIP डिफरेंट तो नहीं है मतलब.
Can you pick one from mutual funds or SIP?
I wouldn't pick both. I would pick index funds.
So Kalpen, the thing is that this again is a short clip. We asked a lot of people. What I want to get to is that the mutual fund industry has been trying to promote this concept. Mutual fund sahi hai, and everybody's seen these ads, and all the companies are trying to do this. But awareness abhi bhi low hai, right? This was a trick question that we asked. So awareness itna low hai, to obviously investor interest bhi low hoga. So where are we with this? आपको क्या लगता है कि is this to do with trust issues? Is this to do with some misconceptions? How is it that ये awareness और education and ultimately investor interest इसमें बढ़ के आएगा?
इस पे 25 साल निकाले to answer, find answers to this, and I still haven't got it. Because every day the context keeps changing. So I keep thinking that आज अगर we were discussing about what car to buy. Now, when you want to buy a car, you only focus on few outcomes and the benefit statement of a car. But वो कार कैसे चलती है वो कोई सोचता नहीं है, और उसकी ज़रूरत भी नहीं है एज अ कंज्यूमर, राइट. आई डोंट नीड टू केयर कि उसका टॉर्क कितना है, RPM क्या है, इंजन की कैपेसिटी क्या है. मोस्ट पीपल डोंट नो. यू मेंशन टू मी अबाउट द रेटिंग्स फ्रॉम अ सेफ्टी पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू कि 5 के ऊपर होना चाहिए. नाउ दीज थिंग्स very few people who really are interested and evolved would know. So the same is with investing, that most consumers, in fact 99.9% of us, only care about the final outcome, because our lives are busy with many other things, including earning money. But how does that money earn more money? And there are different techniques, different routes, there are hundreds of ways. It's very difficult for the common man or for anyone to really deeply understand that first principle concept. ये है क्या? That's one point. Like a lot of people will say मुझे safety चाहिए और ठीक ठाक रिटर्न चाहिए. That's what they'll say. But I was just doing this analysis कि आप अगर इंडिया में जितने भी listed stocks है, और अगर आप देखिए कि number of shareholders कौन से stocks के पास सबसे ज़्यादा है. And we did this exercise. We said that which are the top 20 stocks with the highest number of shareholders. And only 4 companies were companies like ITC, Infosys, TCS, HDFC Bank or Reliance, which were deserving of our hard-earned money. There were some 12 to 15 companies which had between 20 lakhs to 55 lakh investors, and these companies have not made profits in the last 5 years. Their ROEs are negative. The stock price has fallen by 80 to 90 to 95%. And investors have gone and bought that in much larger volumes. मतलब अगर कोई एक स्टॉक पे 50-50 लाख इन्वेस्टर है, तो इसका ये मतलब है कि इन्वेस्टर ने कुछ तो सोच के लगाया होगा, बट या तो कुछ भी नहीं सोचा. तो हर स्पेस में that, and the reason for this is that the benefit of investing is always known back-ended. Unlike this pen which I bought yesterday at the airport, I could real time check इसका प्रोडक्ट क्या है और अच्छा है बुरा है, रियल टाइम बेनिफिट दिखता है. If I want to buy a shirt, real time in 2 minutes I can wear and figure out. This is a product category where the benefits are generally known back-ended. We cannot even communicate the benefits in a finite term because we don't know the returns. 12% बनेगा, 15 बनेगा, 8 बनेगा, जापान में 0 बना है 30 साल में. Who knows? Broadly you know कि अगर ठीक से इन्वेस्ट किया पैसा, ठीक से एसेट एलोकेशन किया तो इन्फ्लेशन को आप बीट कर लोगे. तो बिकॉज इसमें समझाने का जो ज़रिया या तरीका है उसमें फाइनाइटनेस नहीं है. You can't say things with certainty. That is why I think everyone takes different lessons of what does investment mean to me or what is a mutual fund. Also I think I don't think it is a trust issue because awareness ही नहीं है. अगर awareness ही नहीं है तो trust है या नहीं है मैटर नहीं करता है. तो awareness अब बढ़ रही है. तो म्यूचुअल फंड सही है के ज़रिए एक अवेयरनेस बढ़ी है कि ये कुछ तो है जो सही है. अब पूछते हैं क्या सही है. कुछ इन्वेस्टर्स समझ गए हैं बट बहुत ज़्यादा हद तक जैसे ये वीडियो ने दिखाया कि पीपल स्टिल डोंट नो द डिफरेंस बिटवीन SIP एंड म्यूचुअल फंड, विच ऑल्सो मीन्स अ लॉट ऑफ वर्क स्टिल हैज़ टू बी डन इन अ लैंग्वेज दैट दे अंडरस्टैंड. सो जो भाषा है हमारी उसे हम कैसे और कॉमन मैन की लैंग्वेज में इंटरेस्टिंग फॉर्मेट में सिंप्लिसिटी के साथ डिलीवर करें, वो आई थिंक एक बहुत बड़ा गैप और बहुत बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी है. दैट उनकी लैंग्वेज में उनके नज़रिए से हम कैसे इन सब चीज़ों को बताएं. मेरा ये मानना है कि आज हमारे इंडस्ट्री में अगर 3-3.5 करोड़ इन्वेस्टर है और पोटेंशियल शायद 15 या 20 करोड़ इन्वेस्टर तक का है, तो उनको मैटर नहीं करता है लार्ज कैप क्या है, मिड कैप क्या है, स्मॉल कैप क्या है, फ्लेक्सी कैप क्या है, वैल्यू स्टाइल, ग्रोथ स्टाइल, इंडेक्स, ETF, पैसिव, एक्टिव, डायरेक्ट, रेगुलर. So somewhere we also confuse them by giving them choices.
क्या हमने खुद ही कॉम्प्लिकेट कर दिया.
हाँ, so जहाँ पे इंटेलिजेंस ज़्यादा होती है तो थोड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेशन अपने आप आ जाता है. तो और इसीलिए मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है when I see people from outside the industry trying to come and solve the problem. So people like you, the way you're thinking about these solutions, you talk the language of solutions, you don't talk the language of product. तो ये ट्रांजिशन हो रहा है एंड आई एम वेरी होपफुल दैट द जर्नी इन विच वी आर विद द पार्टनरशिप ऑफ द ओल्ड एंड द न्यू, विद द emergence of digital channels and social media channels, and with the emergence of younger people who are coming here to solve problems rather than sell products. तो आई थिंक इसको टाइम लगेगा बट ये जर्नी पिछले 5-7 साल में ही शुरू हुई है. डिजिटाइजेशन, सिंप्लिसिटी ऑफ एक्सेस, थैंक्स टू सिंप्लिसिटी ऑफ पेमेंट मैकेनिज़म्स, पूरे दुनिया में कहीं नहीं हुआ है. आज जो स्पीड से इंडिया में नंबर ऑफ कस्टमर्स ग्रो हुए, nowhere else in the world it has happened. So I am very hopeful that our direction is right, our speed is right. What is needed is making it more granular and making it more real for the consumer, and start to talk from a language which is not so simplistic that it becomes cliched and does not mean anything to anyone, or becomes so intelligent that it becomes elitist. Again, most people then don't connect. So I think वो एक gap है which is work in progress.
I personally feel there needs a lot of transition needs to happen in the way we sell these instruments. Back in the days, if you remember the way a laptop or a computer or a mobile was sold, they were talking about RAM, they were talking about refresh rates, they were talking about speed and all of those things. Now it's like, no, they अच्छा photo लेता है, ये fast है, ये फास्ट है, अच्छा फोटो देता है, बैटरी ज़्यादा है इसका. इट्स नॉट लाइक 3000 मिलियम, किसको फ़र्क पड़ता है. मैं बोलो 15 घंटा चलता है, 10 मिनट में चार्ज हो जाता है. how to bring the, I think a lot of innovation is still needs to happen, happening at a great speed, but still needs to happen to make the product relevant to a larger audience. I personally believe as long as they're doing it in either mutual funds or SIP, why are we imposing that need of knowing that whether it's a mutual fund or an SIP? Though both are same. True. We are soon going to cap out the number of people who understand this language and you can sell them. Now the next growth is going to come from the next 200 million Indians who doesn't understand this language. It's completely alien, it's completely foreign to them. So instead of asking them to climb up the ladder and we playing either
we have to go to their
it's
level.
not about, we shouldn't be either pretentious nor patronizing. We should find a common ground where we become relevant to them rather than asking them to collect, because पैसा तो वो भी बना रहा है, उनको डिप्लॉय करने के लिए जगह चाहिए, and we need to create that favorable environment where they can come and start investing in diversified asset classes. That's how we see.
I completely get you, and I think I'll carry back the two words that you use, that we don't need to be pretentious, neither we have to be patronizing, neither do we need to think that we know it all or इसको कुछ नहीं आता है. On the contrary, we have to learn how to talk a language जो उसको समझ आती है, and we have to improve on that yardstick.
हम फोन को स्मार्ट बनाए.
Not the person, yeah.
We made it.
Phone को smart बनाया हमने. True, not the user.
No, user was smart.
Exactly, that's what. You don't need to make the user smart and say that you are dumb, now you become smart. The user was the user, so we have to change the product to help him achieve his objectives.
क्या बिहेवियरल बायस ऑब्जर्व किया आपने, जिसको हम भारत बोलते हैं और इंडिया बोलते हैं, व्हेन इट कम्स टू इन्वेस्टिंग? मैं वहीं से कंटिन्यू कर रहा हूँ जहाँ से वी वर टॉकिंग अबाउट ट्रस्ट एंड अवेयरनेस, बट जो एक बिहेवियर है फॉर अ पर्सन हु इज़ इन टीयर 1 सिटी, व्हाट वी कॉल एज द इंडिया और द एफ्लुएंट और द प्रिविलेज्ड, और जो बिहेवियर है साइकोलॉजिकल बिहेवियर है ऑफ इन्वेस्टिंग ऑफ टीयर 2 टीयर 3 जिसको हम भारत बोलते हैं, उसके अंदर आपने कुछ पैटर्न ऑब्जर्व किए हैं?
तो मेरा ये मानना है कि शायद ये हमारे दिमाग में ये ज्योग्राफी का डिवाइड है. मुझे लगता है कि आज छोटा शहर हो या बड़ा शहर हो, एक्सेस इक्वली सबको मिल रहा है. आज अगर दुनिया की कोई भी कंपनी अपना रिजल्ट अनाउंस करती है तो सेम टाइम पे मुंबई में मैं उसको सुन सकता हूँ, और बेंगलोर में सुन सकता हूँ, और मैसूर में भी सुन सकता हूँ, और आई फॉरगॉट द नेम ऑफ योर टाउन वेयर यू, आसन में भी सुन सकता हूँ. रियल टाइम एक्सेस बिल्ड हो गया है. And the individual is as intelligent as in a metro. It is wrong to say that the guy in a small metro, small town is not as intelligent. तो मुझे लगता है कि ये डिवाइड हमारे दिमाग में है. So there is no difference in behavioral patterns purely based on geography, and the human being is the same whether in Mumbai or in Mysore. So there is a huge equalization which has happened because information equalize कर रहा है सब कुछ. का growth कहाँ से हो रहा है, कौन से fund में कहाँ growth आ रहा है. So उसमें I have not seen any different pattern that the smaller city consumer is behaving any different than the bigger city consumer. But the question of behavioral bias is actually more about human beings, and there are two types of human beings, rational and irrational. Just by design of nature and the millions of years of human evolution or wiring generally makes most investors poor, most human beings poor investors, because by our reason of existence we have survived millions of years because of this simple rule that जब भी कुछ uncertainty हो तो भाग जाओ वहाँ से. In old days if you would have वो जंगल में अगर पेड़ हिल रहा है and you start thinking rationally and say that नहीं ये तो हवा की वजह से है, not because there is a lion or a predator behind, so let me sit and analyze first. Maybe the predator would have eaten us and we would have been out of the gene pool. So survival instincts which help us as human beings to last longer, actually they go against good investing. We will eliminate lot of accidents जिससे हमारे जो wealth का compounding बीच में टूट जाता है. And if consumers learn those basic principles कि अगर सस्ता है तो ज़्यादा खरीदो, महंगा है तो don't chase, जो सिर्फ सस्ता है तो मत खरीदो, सस्ता और अच्छा भी होना ज़रूरी है.
निश्चय. Anything on the from a product and a business standpoint, is there any different strategy for building for Bharat and building for India when it comes to financial products?
Yeah, because what wealth means, actually that there was a massive gap in what wealth means for us, a guy living in tier 1 versus a guy living in tier 2 and tier 3. Recently someone had tweeted and it was very insightful. 25 years back my dad was happy because he did not had a car and the neighbor guy also did not had a car. So everyone was suffering equally, or so everyone was happy equally. But now I'm sitting in my tier 2 town or a tier 3 town, I'm seeing my friend or someone sitting in Bangalore going to third wave every day. The aspirations are changing very fast. The lines are getting thinner much faster. But at the same time, how do they consume information and how do their aspirations shape up as we move forward? That is going to look alike, but their means and access to capital is going to change. At the same time, avenues for consumption of services is also going to take a while to reach tier 2, tier 3. So long-term, short-term drawdowns needs will be much lower for a tier 2 guy versus a tier 1 guy. Tier 1 को distractions बहुत है. Movie देखने के लिए 800 रुपए,
खर्चे ज़्यादा है.
In my hometown, movie tickets are still $65. Popcorn is still $20. So it's not the same. It's not this equal playing ground for a tier 1 guy and a tier 2 guy. उसके दैट्स द रीज़न यू सी रिटायरमेंट के लिए 1 करोड़ भी चाहिए, 20 करोड़ भी चाहिए, 50 करोड़ भी चाहिए, बिकॉज डिपेंड्स ऑन व्हाट इज़ द एक्सपोजर यू हैव, बट इट्स फास्ट चेंजिंग. सो आई एम वेरी क्यूरियस बिकॉज एस्पिरेशंस तो टीयर 1 की है लेकिन मीन्स टीयर 2 की है, बोथ इन टर्म्स ऑफ इनकम, बोथ in terms of expenditure. How do you cater to their needs and aspirations so that they adopt your product? I think that's going to play a very crucial role. जो भाषा समझ में आएगी, that's going to be very different, and especially doing business in India, it's going to be completely different because the idiosyncrasies are way too many, languages are way too many, definition of wealth is different for a Gujju guy and a Rajasthani guy and a guy sitting in Goa के लिए भाई शाम को एक
Perception of wealth is also different.
it's totally different. So it's going to be the massive personalization needs to be done for every region, for every community, for every age group. Only then you can have a product adopted by massive population across every city in the country. I can imagine the quantum of work that needs to be done to make the product relevant for everyone.
कंजम्पशन ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन कहाँ से आ रहा है? आपने बोला कि आज जो हसन में है वो बैंगलोर में भी कंज्यूम कर सकता है, यूएस में भी कर सकता है, बट देयर इज अ न्यू वे ऑफ डिसेमिनेटिंग इंफॉर्मेशन व्हिच इज द इन्फ्लुएंसर्स. फाइनेंशियल इन्फ्लुएंसर्स एंड इन्फ्लुएंसर्स हैव अ रोल टू प्ले इन आवर इकोसिस्टम, बट व्हाट डू यू थिंक अबाउट द मिस सेलिंग एंड हाउ डज अ कंज्यूमर ड्रॉ लाइन? बट प्राइमरी मोड तो आज भी इन्फ्लुएंसर्स है, तो व्हाट आर योर व्यूज ऑन ये इंफॉर्मेशन डिसेमिनेशन अबाउट फाइनेंस थ्रू दिस न्यू मीडिया?
जो इन्फ्लुएंस हमें मिल रहा था या जो इन्फॉर्मेशन मिल रही थी या जो क्वालिटी ऑफ एडवाइस मिल रही थी, वो या तो अच्छी भी थी और ख़राब भी थी. सो पुराने ज़माने में व्हाट्सएप के ज़रिए नहीं थी इन्फॉर्मेशन, बट मे बी फ्रेंडली अंकल थे या अंकल का बेटा था या कोई इंश्योरेंस का एजेंट था, or who optically thinks he knows more. But even in those days, there was always that risk of information getting labeled as advice. But expertise थी कि नहीं, who knows. दूसरा मुझे लगता है कि while no doubt WhatsApp पे बहुत सारा information आता है, but वो अपने आप को crowd करके cancel भी कर देता है. Because when so many messages are coming, they cancel out each other because they are also coming in different directions, opposite opinions and stuff like that. Seen to be more effective right now is what is delivered with interestingness and entertainment value. And उसमें अगर आपने कुछ नई बात बोल दी अच्छी तरह से, तो वो आपको इन्फ्लुएंस कर देती है. अब यहाँ पे ये देखना ज़रूरी है कि जो आपको मैसेज दे रहा है वो अच्छा इन्फ्लुएंसर है या सच्चा इन्फ्लुएंसर है. अच्छा can be entertaining but may not be coming from the lens of real expertise. So it's very important as consumers to know कि पूरी दुनिया हमारे पैसे के पीछे है. हमारा जो वॉलेट है इसको हमें संभाल के रखना है. It's not just financial services industry. Brands are also trying to provoke you to sell. We have to decide how should we buy and what should we buy and how much should we buy. And for that, each consumer will have to learn how to identify किस पे भरोसा किया जाए. तो हर फील्ड में अच्छे लोग होते हैं और बुरे लोग होते हैं. अच्छे क्रिकेटर्स है, बुरे क्रिकेटर्स है. अच्छे फंड मैनेजर्स है, बुरे फंड मैनेजर्स है. अच्छे फिन्फ्लुएंसर्स भी है और बुरे फिन्फ्लुएंसर्स भी है. आई थिंक मुझे काफ़ी टाइम लगता है कि दिस इज़ ऑल्सो एन इंडस्ट्री विच इज़ ऑल्सो प्रोन टू मिस बाइंग एज मच एज मिस सेलिंग. 27 साल हो गया अभी. 18% CAGR रिटर्न है. अगर 10 रुपया लगाया होता तब, तो आज शायद 880 रुपया वैल्यू हो गई होती उसकी. 27 साल की हिस्ट्री में 27 इन्वेस्टर नहीं है जो 27 साल रुके हो. ओवर सिंप्लीफिकेशन, overdose of information, every time there is information there is this itch to act, makes us bad investors unintentionally. Unknowingly we end up becoming bad investors. Ease of digital channels to transmit. आज काफ़ी टाइम मुझे लगता है कि everyone wants to say something. So there are days I type a tweet and then I ask this question, मैं क्यों लिख रहा हूँ? Why am I inflicting this random thought on people who are following me? What is the value I'm adding to them? So let me delete it. So 90% of my tweets are after deleting 90%. Because the question you ask is that if it's not adding value, then let be silent. Just because there is a medium, you don't have to transmit. So I think this is a very important point because we are dealing with people's hard-earned money. It should not be over-trivialized. In the desire to simplify and in the desire to entertain, simplicity or entertainment के focus में actual outcomes get lost. And I always ask this question that जो सामने वाला मुझे बता रहा है कि यहाँ इन्वेस्ट करो या वहाँ इन्वेस्ट करो, क्या वो अपनी इनकम और अपना रिटर्न उस इन्वेस्टमेंट से बना रहा है या एंडोर्समेंट से बन रहा है. एंड नथिंग रॉन्ग विद एंडोर्समेंट प्रोवाइडेड यू आर ऑल्सो हैविंग स्किन इन द गेम. So I think this is again a buyer's beware world, in everything else. You know that you should not eat fried food, but still we go and eat it, right? So likewise, you know you should not consume information from people who are not real experts, but we still consume because it is available. It is available in plenty, and it seems nice in the short term. So these are things which will happen in every regime. पुराने ज़माने में कोई और मिस सेल कर रहा था, नए ज़माने में नए तरीके से होगा. कंज्यूमर को थोड़ा समझ के इन चीज़ों को सीख के अपने डिसीजंस को लेना पड़ेगा. दिस इज द नाइस एनेक्डोट, राइट, दैट अ गाय वाज नियर अ लैम्प पोस्ट सर्चिंग फॉर समथिंग एंड समवन आस्क्ड हिम कि आप क्या ढूंढ रहे हो. सो ही सेड आई एम सर्चिंग फॉर माय वाइफ्स रिंग विच बाय मिस्टेक मेरे घर के पास गिर गई थी. तो ही सेड घर वहाँ है तो यहाँ क्यों ढूंढ रहे हो. एंड ही सेड लाइट यहाँ है इसलिए यहाँ ढूंढ रहा हूँ, वहाँ तो अंधेरा है. So because availability of light जहाँ है you are going there. So likewise availability of information जहाँ ज़्यादा है, people react to information because it is available, not because it is the right information to act on. So these are the pitfalls of excess data, speed of transmission, and I think with every progress there will be some good outcomes and some bad outcomes.
आप delete कर पाते हो 90% tweets because that's not your main bread and butter, right? Yeah. But the other way around is the thing, right? But anyway, Nishcha, you have anything to say here?
Look, you have to choose your heroes very carefully. That's what I personally feel. If someone is actually asking someone else to invest their hard-earned money, at least get yourself trained enough. Learn how to withdraw PF money. Like, why sab, that's the last ounce of saving. Why are you asking people to go after it? Invest your own time and effort, because advice can come from anywhere, but you are the one who is going to live on, experience the consequence of it. So you can't blame someone else for your misfortune. So there is nothing wrong. Information comes from all directions, but it's up to you that how do you consume and how do you act on it. And you have to internalize that.
How do you know what is hero in this? Because like I said कि रिटर्न अच्छा आने वाला है, बुरा आने वाला है, और तीसरे, पाँचवें, 10वें साल में पता चलेगा. आज मैंने जो बोला अगर अच्छे स्टाइल में बोल दिया तो मैं हीरो बन गया. And if you deliver the same thing in a better style, you are the hero. But the result is only going to be 10 years later. So it's a very difficult domain to look for even heroes. And the second thing is, and I'll give you my own examples. There are times when many people genuinely ask that I have some money, क्या करूँ, कहाँ invest करना चाहिए. And
वो आने वाला है अभी सवाल.
And out of good intent, I will say कि ABC category में कर लो, या generally I don't talk about my fund unless someone will ask. But then there are a lot of senior advisors and friends who tell me that you thought that you are adding value to him and wanting to help him, but you don't even know his context.
Correct. Personalized advice.
How can you advise him without knowing his context? So your intent is good, and if you say that no, I can't tell you, then he'll say कि तुमको आता नहीं है. So, but it's very important to understand each person's context. Morgan Housel ने बोला है, right, कि personal finance is more personal and less finance. And today when I give generic advice, I give from my lens as an investor, but that may not be relevant to you or to you. So, I think it's a very pertinent point that you're talking about, and each investor has to make some effort, because ये हम 25, 30, 40 साल का effort करके पहली कमाई आती है. तो पहली कमाई आने के लिए जो effort डालते हैं, उसको इन्वेस्ट करने के लिए 2 मिनट का भी एफर्ट नहीं डालते हैं,
और 100 रुपये का डिस्काउंट के लिए 2 घंटे लगाते हैं.
तो ये जो कॉन्टेक्स्ट है ना, कि अगर इन्वेस्टर ये समझ ले कि इसमें मुझे थोड़ी ज़्यादा मेहनत करने की ज़रूरत है, सो दैट आई चूज़ द राइट लर्निंग्स, एम आई लर्निंग द राइट लेसन्स, फॉरगेट फ्रॉम द राइट हीरोज और नॉट, वो तो इंपॉर्टेंट है ही, बट उससे भी मैं सही लेसन ले रहा हूँ, बिकॉज बुल मार्केट में द लेसन्स यू लर्न मोस्ट लाइकली आर द रॉन्ग लेसन्स, एंड बेयर मार्केट में द लेसन्स यू लर्न आर द राइट लेसन्स, बट आफ्टर 20-30% लॉस. So इतना आसान नहीं है actually. These things are not very easy because if it was easy, only 1% of the world would not be rich.
So there's a quote going around: "You are a product of 5 people you spend the most time with." And I've written that you are a product of 5 people that you choose to follow. So choose wisely.
Where have you written this?
Nobody reads what I write on Twitter.
So I should follow you now.
Coming from where you come from, chemical engineering. So आपके घर में financial decision making, your upbringing, your conditioning. We've spoken so much about, you know, how tier 1, tier, I think all of us who are in tier 1, हमारे अंदर कुछ tier 2 है, हम आते तो वहीं से ही हैं, right? तो आपका जर्नी बताइए सर कि कहाँ से शुरू होके and how did it come to DSP?
So my journey is like each one of us. Nothing new, nothing different. You know, middle class family. It was DK, double income, 3K, 3 kids. Father, mother, both were working, and we were 3 kids. You know, they were basically like your and my father and mother, where the only focus and obsession was to have a better future so that kids can study and you know, grow. So they were working because there was no other source of income, no ancestral wealth or family wealth. So that was my first lesson of you know, frugality, that the money that I'm spending today is not my money. It is their sweat and effort. So I've seen father and mother both working till the age of 65. I've seen my dad live away from us for almost 15 years, you know, in Middle East, so that income could have been higher, and mom living hence, you know, so they were doing this for us. I've seen my mom traveling for 4 hours in a day in Mumbai trains. And Mumbai trains are the worst experience. The way you have to get in, get out, it's risky. Sometimes I realize, how did we all do this? Not just me, but lakhs of people who do this every day. So, you know, for me, that was my first lesson of knowing that paise ki value is not what I can buy, but what it has taken for them to, you know, get this basic education. Then I went for my engineering. I had to live in a hostel outside in Pune. I'm born in Mumbai, but I studied in Pune. So even in my hostel, there were people of different economic backgrounds and different wealth and different desires of what to spend and what to save. And there were days to decide every day कि मुझे कौन से ग्रुप के साथ टाइम स्पेंड करना है, बिकॉज ये ग्रुप का खर्चा महीने का या दिन का उतना है जितना मेरा साल का हुआ करता है. तो अब ये ग्रुप में रहूँगा तो यू नो इतना कैपेसिटी नहीं है, सो देन लेट मी फॉर्म दिस ग्रुप. So these are automatic lessons that you learn on a real-time basis. And then even in that engineering group, there were some friends who were very smart and who were themselves investors, and they wanted to, you know, read economic times and certain magazines so that they can learn faster. And the learning was that those magazines used to cost more money. So then we had to save money and we had to pool money. And to save more money than what we could take from our parents, we had to save money from our costs of running the mess and how we used to source vegetables and, you know, get them together. So those were the, you know, more interesting learning curves. And, you know, these are small things that over time taught the value of saving every rupee. And then I've said this many times that I am a huge product or an outcome of randomness, where no career step of mine has been deeply thought through. It has just happened. So even in my, so like I did my chemical engineering, I worked for a year as an engineer. And to run away from engineering, I said, कुछ और करना है तो फिर से let me go back to college. The only, so hence do an MBA. नहीं तो engineer बन के machines के साथ काम करना पड़ेगा. और machines के साथ थोड़ा डर भी लगता था, because you know I had to go to various factories and do tests on boilers which had like 100-200 degree temperatures. So हमेशा वो thought होता था कि what if things go wrong here. So I did my MBA, and then my hiring or introduction to the industry happened because in one of the interviews I was very scared. And I was scared, so I was, because वो group discussion होता है, right, where everyone tries to answer first. So I generally can't survive in a crowd where everyone is shouting or everyone wants to prove. So as usual, I lost in the first 5 minutes and I closed my eyes and I said, अभी next interview में कुछ करते हैं. And the HR person there, उसको लगा कि मैं बहुत ही strategic thought सोच रहा हूँ कुछ. So she told me that I would love to know your thoughts. तो सीधा एंट्री मिल गया, where I said 2 lines जो उसको अच्छा लगा, and they hired me. And they hired me in a role where, you know, I joined L&T Finance. That was my first job. I was a trainee working with few, you know, seniors. I was quickly learning about bond markets and how to invest in debt instruments. And that was just the beginning of the private sector mutual fund space in India. Otherwise, we always had UTI and LIC and government-owned mutual funds. But mutual funds like Prudential, Birla Sun Life, Franklin Templeton, Alliance,
This is
DSP.
what year?
So this was 98, DSP Merrill Lynch. They were just emerging. 95 में शुरुआत हुई थी. So ये भी I'm again highlighting the role of randomness that we decided to. So the biggest, the worst way in which most of us tend to invest, and consumers also do that today, is they will in those days तो ये सब apps नहीं थे to compare returns, but जो भी 6-7 फंड थे, we would see the Excel sheet कि last एक महीने का रिटर्न सबसे ज़्यादा कहाँ है. So some debt funds suddenly started showing 12, 13, 15% return. So I suggested to the management कि हमें यहाँ पैसा लगाना चाहिए. तो हमने 200-300 करोड़ कुछ डेट फंड और GSEC फंड में लगा दिया. And around the same time, RBI first time started liberalizing interest rates and cutting interest rates. And when rates are cut, bond prices rise sharply. So wherever we had invested, that started giving 18, 19, 20% return. So this created great illusion of confidence and expertise. I cracked it. Now, why am I saying these things is to highlight that these are the wrong learnings at times that you take as investors, and then damage your permanent wealth creation journey. So the wrong lesson I took was कि पिछले एक महीने का रिटर्न देके मैंने इन्वेस्ट कर दिया और अगले 6 महीने में बहुत अच्छा रिटर्न आ गया. So that's the right way of investing. And the party generally continues for some time, but when it breaks, it takes away all extra returns and capital that you invested. So when I started doing that and returns भी अच्छे थे, तो some fund houses came and said, we are looking for a role of so and so design and we think you are a good fit, why don't you come? So 4 म्यूचुअल फंड ने पूछा तो मुझे लगा कि अपने पीछे लाइन लगी है, तो मैं तो गॉड हूँ. So I had a choice to select and I chose a mutual fund basis the height of the ceiling. The height of the ceiling. इसकी ऑफिस सबसे बढ़िया है. This office is very royal, old British architecture and so on and so forth. So that's how I joined Prudential ICICI. And that is how I started, learning. And then since then, it's never looking back because these 23 years have seen, 8-10 market cycles. I started with the 2000 bubble of technology when, जैसे 2 साल पहले NASDAQ was booming. That time it was booming 3 times more in short periods of time. And in the first 3 months, wherever invest किया था वो पैसा double हो गया. And in the next 6 months, that 200 rupees came down to 40 rupees. So I started my career with large capital losses. And the biggest lesson that time was, it was not my money, but a lot of investors who had invested basis the story I had told them that, India will change the world, technology of India will rule the world, Infosys, TCS नहीं था तभी, नहीं, TCS, Infosys, Wipro, they will become global companies, वो सब हुआ. But if the stocks ran up 5 years ahead of time, it had to reset. And many investors believe in it because the story is too nice to believe and you like to hear stories. So my learning that time was that it is easy to sell if your story is good, but generally most often you'll never make money. And forget never make money, but you lose money for your consumers. So I remember 85-year-old investors in Chennai who had given their retirement ka some money to me through my funds and 80% correction. So those were some very important lessons that ये किसी और का पैसा है, ये मेरा पैसा नहीं है. So मेरा चलो 80% नीचे गिर भी गया, it's fine. I have time to recover. But what do I tell these guys? So that's how that journey of introspection and reflection, that next time ये गलती नहीं करनी है. Thankfully same गलती avoid की, but then you make new mistakes. In every cycle there are some new mistakes you make, but incrementally my whole learning was that learn how not to lose money first. So it took few years to know कि if you solve for not losing money, most likely you will make more money than what you thought. And if you try to search for return कहाँ ज़्यादा बनेगा, most likely return नहीं बनता है, risk बनता है. जब आप रिटर्न खरीदने जाते हो तो आप रिस्क खरीद के आते हो. ये मेरा बहुत बड़ा लर्निंग है. और अगर आप रिस्क को कम रखोगे पोर्टफोलियो में, अपने आप रिटर्न बन जाता है. So that is how my journey started in mutual funds, from learning engineering and then working as an engineer and then coming on this side. And after that, I've been very blessed. I think you only mentioned, right, that the best talent in the last 2 decades has been in the financial world. So I've worked with some fabulous colleagues in different organizations. All of them are, competitors today. But I take very small credit for where I am. But for luck and the learnings that I could pick from some of these giants. Newton ने बोला है शायद कि, you can look far if you stand on the shoulder of giants. So every interaction has been very enriching. So, one thing that I tell everyone, that if you are in the company of good people around you, as an organization or as a team, in early years of your career, it goes a long way in enriching you from skill sets, as well as eventually enriching you from more income. And then eventually the path to financial independence can be fast-tracked.
Are these the same philosophies that you carry forward to now at DSP? Obviously. So you mentioned that you're a conservative investor. So because you've seen some down cycles, and so can you take us through how yeah?
So few learnings that have come, and every 5 years, कभी-कभी लगता है कि by the time you acquire so much of knowledge, you'll realize कि you have been such a bad investor all through. And the biggest learning I've had is that inherently the world is uncertain. And we try to artificially impose certainty on it because we like certainty. So when we start thinking from that lens, we are actually becoming anti-nature. This was like, और ये सही था कि नहीं पता नहीं, बड़ा अच्छा anecdote है. So it's something worth listening to. 1914 में न्यूयॉर्क स्टॉक एक्सचेंज में बहुत बड़े गैदरिंग में लोगों ने, I think that was also the time when US markets were very volatile. So JP Morgan, who was the founder of JP Morgan and one of the best bankers in those days, they asked him this question that, what's your view on markets? So he closed his eyes for a few minutes and he thought a lot. And everyone was expecting a long monologue. And he just uttered 2 words: markets fluctuate. And that is the most universal reality of most asset classes. So if that is the defining statement, that markets fluctuate, asset classes fluctuate, performance fluctuates, the degree of fluctuation will change depending on what asset classes. Debt mein fluctuations are narrow, equity mein fluctuation is wider, crypto mein fluctuation is more wider. वो ऊपर भी ज़्यादा जाता है, नीचे भी ज़्यादा जाता है. So now that if you know that, then the biggest learning in my investing approach is then that when it has done very well, remember that fluctuation का time अगर आएगा तो ये अच्छा नहीं करेगा. So become conservative when something has done very well. And on the other hand, when something has not done very well, become a bit aggressive. So that teaches you to be counter-cyclical in the world of investing. And that I think has been a very big learning for me. So I think if you broadly, marry these 2-3 rules, it works well in the medium to long term. It actually doesn't work well in the short term, because when things are doing well, they can continue to do well for a bit longer. And you may be conservative at that point, you will underperform. But when that cycle turns, you come out more successful. The third learning is that 100 rupees becoming 50 means you need 100% first to just come to your starting point. रेस शुरू हो गई है, 5 साल निकल गया, आपका 100 का 100 ही है, तो 5 साल का कंपाउंडिंग चला गया. Now normally if you see I'm talking of Indian context, 93 से 2003 10 साल का फेज था जहाँ मार्केट का रिटर्न 0 था, बिकॉज 93 वॉज अ बबल. तो यू बॉट इन बबल, तब बहुत बड़ी इंडिया स्टोरीज और ये सब आती थी, राइट, जब हर्षद मेहता का स्कैम हुआ. लॉट ऑफ पीपल इन्वेस्टेड. उसके बाद मार्केट्स क्रैश, देन दे डबल्ड, देन दे क्रैश अगेन, देन दे डबल्ड, बट वो 10 साल का रिटर्न 0 था. सिमिलरली 2003 में जिसने पैसा लगाया मंदी में, अगले 4 साल में सिर्फ निफ्टी ने 7 गुना रिटर्न दिया. 4 साल में 700% रिटर्न निफ्टी में, और 1500% रिटर्न, मतलब 15 टाइम रिटर्न बना स्मॉल कैप इंडेक्स में सिर्फ 4 साल में. सो इट टीचेस यू रॉन्ग लेसन्स अगेन कि ये पॉसिबल है. और 2007-8 में लोगों का रिस्क एपिटाइट बहुत ही लिबरल हो गया, और 2008 में 50% का क्रैश हुआ बिकॉज ऑफ ग्लोबल क्राइसिस. 2009 और 10 में डबल हो गया, बट यू आर स्टिल एट सेम प्राइस एज 2008, एंड देन फॉर 3 years मार्केट्स वेंट नोवेयर. सो 5-year रिटर्न्स वर 0. सो what I always tell people is that, generally in investing, you will always be told stories of how to make money and कब पैसा बहुत अच्छा बनता है, but you will never be told stories कि कब पैसा नहीं बनता है, because that stories will not, increase sales. But when you will live through those periods of 0 returns, see, पिछले 7-8 साल में ना, bad phases have been very short-lived. बुरा टाइम आया ही नहीं है, और आया भी है तो 6 महीने में चला गया है. So the lessons we have learned in the last 10 years may not be the right lessons for an ordinary world. We have been in extraordinary world. So the next lesson for me is, you know, whenever I invest and whenever we at DSP also invest, we first look at the long history, and history has lot of learnings than trying to forecast, because forecast तो हवा में कुछ भी कर सकते हो, but history tells you up to where can things go, and you know at the bottom also where can things go. And then when you see that, you know, when do you not make money? Now, what were the conditions when you didn't make money? What were the conditions when, you know, there were losses? And then you ask that question, that are we seeing any similar conditions? Then let's calibrate our risk. Let's become more conservative, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the learnings that I have had. Now at DSP, it is not just my experiences which are at play. Remember, DSP is a 160-year-old company. So मेरी lifespan, I have spent 50 years on earth. They have spent, the group is, you know, 3.5 times older. So they have survived in spite of me. And which means there is some survival instinct, and that survival instinct again comes from conservatism. So, you know, I have our chairman who, you know, spends 2-3 hours every day whenever he's in India with us. So the wisdom that I draw from him is, वो 3 या 4 ही लाइन बोलते हैं जब भी मेरे साथ बात होती है कि, you know, reputation first, don't compromise on integrity, risk management first, bad news है तो सबसे पहले बता दो. So the whole mindset is about survival. So that is in a way a part of you know, it's a DNA of the organization. I have just, you know, come in 6 years back and got integrated, right? I am only 6 years in the history of 160 years. So I don't claim that I am contributing to the design of the organization. I am actually a beneficiary of that. And because of that thinking or culture, a lot of hiring that we do tends to be of people who more or less think from a durability first. And then there is a very big, you know, learning that got added on in our partnership with people like Merrill Lynch and BlackRock, where if you go to BlackRock's website, they very seriously say that, you know, our reason to exist is better financial futures for our investors. You know, fiduciary responsibility is most important. So the whole, see, if you narrow down everything, we are today fortunate to, you know, get money of around 35 lakh investors. We 35 lakh investor में we will have, you know, Mr. Ambani's company also investing with us, Mr. Narayan Murthy's company also investing with us, your hard-earned money also invested with us. मेरे ड्राइवर का भी पैसा है, तो सबके अलग-अलग risk profiles हैं. But we have to keep in mind that, you know, we highlight our risks upfront in the portfolio, and investors know what they are taking. That's our intent. Not necessarily it always works out. So that's how we have shaped our thinking. We've made our mistakes also. ऐसा नहीं कि, you know, with all this, in spite of all these learnings, we've also made mistakes that I'm not very proud about. But we've made. But one thing I feel good is that we have confronted them. We've looked at them and said that these are mistakes we should have never made in the first place. So hence, let's create a structure or a design where the human being also cannot, you know, change those things to make that mistake again. So that's how you build longevity. And the other, you know, nuance about us is, you know, globally, if you look at asset management companies, the top 10 guys, they are generally standalone investment management companies. They are not conglomerates doing investment management. India is a slightly different market where because the category is new, familiarity is more important for a customer. Big market, small market. ये बैंक ओन्ड है तो चलो नाम सुना है, हर गली में ATM देखा है, अगर ये कंपनी ने मुझे लोन दिया है तो इसका म्यूचुअल फंड भी है तो अच्छा ही होगा. DSP is known because of its 1990s का era of capital markets, where a lot of IPOs were brought to the market by DSP. A lot of retail India knows of DSP through that lens, and since the last 26 years through the lens of money management. But we don't have the design of a conglomerate owned or a bank owned entity. We are a family owned entity, professionally run. So that allows us to think a bit differently. That allows us also the luxury of time. We are not a listed company, so we don't have to build the business with a 3-month, you know, orientation. So there are pros and cons of this design. We don't have the scale of a bank-owned firm, but we also have the luxury of longevity and time on the other hand. We are trying to, you know, learn from our past successes as well as failures.
Kalpen, we have DSP, which is a 150 plus year corporation, and we come from a very fintech technology side of things. So I just want to talk about role of technology in finance. I also want to talk about what is it that we can learn from from a traditional institution, and how are you leveraging the new age technology into your system? So this is out for you both. Anybody can go first there.
You should go first.
See, we're a digitally native country for sure. The way I look at it is, as I was telling, phone ko smart banaya. Same thing like internet, for example. Back in the days, how internet, it was all DOS prompt from there. It was Linux servers and all of those things, only moving files and all. Finally came an email, and then came chats and all of those things for which you needed email. Which was a mandatory, and WhatsApp was able to scale in India at such a massive rate because that was the first platform which removed the need of a email ID to be able to message someone. Your phone number is your identity. It removed all the kind of barricades and all of those things, created a least path of resistance gateway for consumers to jump. And I feel we need to do the same thing in the financial world, and you can do it through technology. And thanks to the whole India stack, be it Jandan, be it Aadhaar, be it eKYC, CKYC, all of those things, and DigiLocker and all of those things, a lot can be leveraged from this, and we need to remove the burden from users. Like cost of participation has to be brought down, meaning the burden of capital. दिमाग में psychological barriers है कि इतना तो करना चाहिए. It's like 5,000 तो करना चाहिए, 10,000 तो करना चाहिए. 5 रुपए से भी कर सकते हो, 10 रुपए भी से कर सकते हो, 100 रुपए से भी कर सकते हो, 500 रुपए से भी कर सकते हो. That is one thing. Second thing is whole need of jargons, pretentiousness, सब कुछ निकालना है. Everything is built like a tool. My initial funda is that financial services was a rich man's forte, and bankers sold these services in person. So they had to optimize for that time they optimize their time by only talking to a rich man. To talk to a rich man, you have to develop a language which he understands. And now, thanks to advent of technology, you can take this product to masses, and a new language is required altogether, and a new level of customization is required, catering to them in a language they understand, in a way they understand, and deliver a very personalized experience. At the same time, ease up the entire thing, remove all the jargons, remove all the pretension, remove all the resistance that comes through, and understand the user. He's doing it for multiple reasons. Someone might be saving because I never save. So I want to start now. Someone is like, I save in 10 different places. This is a diversification. I want to do it here also, and it's a fun way of doing it. Someone is saving because कुछ तो कर लो. Someone is saving because ये भी try करूँगा. Different reasons. Is there any, how much signature is there of each one of these? How can you identify which cohort he belongs to, and then deliver a very personalized experience to him, the language you speak, the creatives that you show, the metrics that he deliver to him to measure for him to take a quicker decision, and all of those things. And it's all going to be technology. Our innovation is happening completely at the distribution layer. Financial engineering level, I believe there are dozen a dime experts. I think that's not our core expertise. Our core expertise is actually building a massive distribution layer where we can help people adopt these new ways of doing things. And thanks to the instrument that we are, so technology is going to play a very crucial role. At the same time, we need to deliver a lot on trust. We need to deliver a lot on stability of the systems and all of those things. How do you be available all the time? How do you deliver liquidity whenever he needs? How do you manage his insecurities? How do you manage his aspirations? How do you manage his cash flow requirements and all of those things? That's where we try to solve everything through tech. Very low personal touch, and all the personal touch is going to be driven through technology, understanding and trying to put a label on each one of them and trying to talk to them through those labels. That's how we see technology. But we would love to understand how a 160-year-old, probably it started with pen and paper, or probably I don't even know what was there back then.
How did you buy stocks back then?
Even I don't have knowledge of that era when stock market was, I think, under that banyan tree, right? That is what we have read in history.
Yeah, I would love to understand how you treat technology, how you adopt technology, because technology will, I mean, you will not get so much liberty as we, because I can test it with 10 users. You can't do that with the fund. I would love to understand what role technology plays in a company like DSP.
So I think the first thing that we learn in investing is that one lens is how can we take better investment decisions, because at the core there are two pillars of our business. One is like you know, how do we distribute right through partners like you, or through our digital platforms and through traditional partners. So that is a distribution leg. We are working on that leg from a tech point of view. And the second leg is once we get inflows, the fund management that we do. How can we take better investment decisions? How do we record our thinking in a place which accumulates, where even the next generation of our fund managers know how did we think at a point in time, because institutional memory is mostly lost. And today technology through record keeping, through notes taking allows us to do that. Today technology also allows us to ask this question, that if the context of the 5 variables that matter are X today, and whenever in the past was the context same as X, tell us what was the outcome. And that outcome can tell us whether our investment should be done or not done. So it allows us to be more multidimensional when we take our decisions, when we decide what calls we should take, identify patterns in the past, and if similar patterns are there, what does well and what does not do well. At the click of a button we can do this exercise, which otherwise would have taken us few people and maybe a week or two to do that. On the distribution side, our use of technology again is on 2 dimensions: understanding the consumer well and delivering to him basis that understanding. But the challenge sometimes for us is that the customer's entire wallet is not with us for us to understand or give him any input on advice. But what we try to do is we look at his behavior with us over his lifespan, and we try to identify patterns. We give data points once in a year. We communicate that the best cohort at the stage of acquisition in terms of the profiling that you mentioned. So our thinking of profiling right now is based on the limited data that we have, basis their investment purchase and sale decision with us. We don't have a full view either of their wallet or their SMSs to know their wider journey. So those are some of the limitations, but we keep thinking, and with partners like you, I'm sure I'm going to get sleepless night tonight saying how can we learn these things and see where can we apply. But as of now, our 2 primary use cases are in better decision making for ourselves when we are putting your money at work, and also giving you inputs that don't make wrong decisions. And like I said, I think one thing I keep repeating is that our whole obsession is around understanding risk first, which is towards appreciation of returns anyways. So we don't need to add to that further and accentuate the greed part. The idea is to balance that search for returns by saying that there is a lot of hidden risk which you never search for, and when it comes and surprises you, you will become a bad investor by taking wrong decisions. But if you are aware upfront कि यार ये हर 6-7 साल में एक बार 40-50% गिरता है temporary, and then again it moves up, then you will be a better investor. So I think that's where we try to leverage combination of technology, analytics at a customer level, and communicate accordingly.
There is one very common topic among all the fintechs, and I'm sure you might be facing this as well, that participation of women in digital fintech products has been low throughout, right? I will not go into numbers and everything, but what do you think we need to do, and what do you think, why is it that the participation of women in digital fintech products is so low in India?
So I think one insight we've had, and we every year, we have a program called Investors, where we, in a very dedicated manner, create our content in a language which is more suitable for female investors, and they can, appreciate the reasons to invest, because inherently they are wired to be hopefully better investors than men. I don't want to be sexist here, but that is what data suggests, and that is what behavior suggests. But I think, to make more women invest, I think it's important to teach men that you should encourage women in the family to take these decisions. Apart from constant awareness creation for women to take decisions in their hands, for better independence. But if every father in a family is told that you have to be equal when you are teaching your son about investing, at the same time spend as much time to make your daughter equally independent. I think that's how that change should happen. So first level thinking would say that preach to the women कि तुम better investor बनो या शुरू करो. But I think the real crux is the culture and the environment in families in India, where even today the male dominates money related decision making, and women are generally not assumed to be experts in that space. They are experts in many other fields of a home. So I think that equalization is required, and that's where men have to play a very important role to talk about money, discuss about money, and with females or with women in homes. So my wife is a lawyer. She has, she was a top ranking lawyer. तो मुझे तो engineering में कभी top rank नहीं मिला था, ना MBA में मिला था. So she is more intelligent than me. She has more common sense than me. But yet she doesn't take any interest in investing because she assumes that I'm taking care of it. So, same with my sister, chartered accountant, lawyer, again, more accomplished. CAs are obviously, I always feel, more rigorous than MBAs. तो skill sets है, easily अगर दिमाग लगाएंगे तो सीख सकते हैं. But वो एक पैटर्न है ऑफ सदियों का जो हिसाब है कि पैसे का डिसीजन मेल्स विल टेक. तो ये चेंज करने के लिए आई थिंक मेल्स इन द होम्स विल हैव टू टेक दोज डिसीजंस, एंड आवर मैसेजिंग एंड communication has to be around bringing that change. I think so. We've been trying, but long way to go. I think even from a distribution point of view, there are some very interesting conversations that our regulators have been having. Recently released a discussion paper on how to grow the industry. There's one very interesting thought they have presented that if distribution partners get more female investors to come and invest, we'll be allowed to incentivize that slightly better than male investors. So that could be one way in terms of bringing sharper focus to make more women invest. But that still may not necessarily mean that the woman is taking that decision. I think what we need to solve for is, can women be empowered to take those decisions versus telling the male कि तुम और 2 female folios open कर लो. What may unintentionally end up happening is more folios will have open, but not because my sister took that decision or my wife took that decision. So it's a cultural barrier to solve for, and we are searching for answers.
Yes, adding on to that, I think the decision structure and all of those things are there. But at the same time, I think whatever experience that we have had so far is that how do we package the product and how do we market the product, and how well it is engineered and tailored for women. Because the definition of wealth, the definition of savings is quite different for men and women. If you ask them randomly, what does this mean to you? What will you do with money? The answers are very different. So all the products which have been built and sold so far, the messaging was around male audience. Now we have significant women population participating in workforce and all of those things. Enough people have disposable income and all. I think it's high time we build products with a narrative around needs, their needs, and also package it. It's like probably there are many companies which are selling the same cream in 2 different box, or the same soap in 2 different box.
Yeah,
I think
packaging is different.
So for some reason we believe that एक ही product को
सबके लिए सेम लैंग्वेज में नहीं होना चाहिए.
There should be 2 different set of individuals. We need to work on it for sure. That's how I feel. And delivery should be enabled through tech and all of those things. How do you help them make quicker decisions, easier decisions, and all of those things? How do you empower them? How do you make them confident to do it? And all those things and all those things is delivered through messaging, through tech, simplicity, and all of those things. So I think a lot of work needs to be done.
Hopefully over time we'll get a tailwind that more women are becoming earning members, and they are taking their careers more seriously. So at least half the battle is won, that they have money in their hands which they are themselves generating. Now the second half of the battle is to say that now start taking investment decisions. It's not a rocket science. कोई rocket science नहीं है. So you can take the same decision that your brother is taking or your father is taking. So take that charge. So I think it's a combination of product design and marketing aligned to that segment.
Participation of urban working female population in India is decreasing since 3 decades.
It's decreasing 3 seconds.
And I'm talking about urban female work.
And there is a reason. What they say is the male earning capacity is going up.
So hence they are okay with.
So it's mutual, it's fine, but yeah, but it's when it's presented in a way that you read the article, it says कि पाकिस्तान का ज़्यादा है, नेपाल का ज़्यादा हमारा,
वो थोड़ा
whatever.
exaggerated हो जाता है.
But there is very little research on क्यों है. And and when a lot of people are talking about it. Kunal Shah is talking about it in every podcast. How do you get this? This is a clear-cut missing pie that is there for us, right?
This is then an illusion also, because my illusion is that that number is increasing, but if the data is other way around,
I asked
It's actually
people,
because
then
one is spouses
earning more.
earning more. That is there. Second thing is systems are not designed to support
nuclear families in metros.
Metro cities.
As soon as there is family,
there's a
You have a
kid.
child, the wife, which actually anecdotally is correct. So मेरे घर पे वही हुआ है. Wife, left her job.
So it's a mutual decision probably, and we also have to see the age groups. I think 21, 22 might be more, right?
But in a certain age group, it might be falling.
But I just do this. I just ask my female friends or anybody that tell me 10 of your women friends in Bangalore and tell me how many are working. They will say 9 or 10, right? Yeah, I mean, so if how many women do you know in Bangalore?
But if 9 out of 10 are working, it
In
is
my
good data
circle,
point.
In our circle.
But in our circle.
In our circle. So we are living a different world.
Living in our world, but
Yeah.
the real world outside could be very different.
Or maybe the way they've captured data. I think there are nuances to it. Yeah. What does wealth mean to you? What did it mean when you were studying or as a child, and how has it changed you as a person now that I can confidently say that you have money? So what does wealth mean to you? How has that changed you as a person?
So, to be honest, never had that state of deprival of money to make it mean a lot. So again, I'm a very wrong sample ingredient or sample size, because while we had less money to start with as a middle class family, but over time, in the family, father, mother, brother, sister, myself, all of us being working people, we had enough money over time that our minds don't think about that wealth ka matlab kya hai. So I can give you very nice answers like financial freedom hai, ability to take the decisions I want. So it is comfort zone. It is, not having to think twice about few things. कल एयरपोर्ट पे ये पेन खरीदना था, खरीद लिया, बट घर रूम में आके सोचा कि ऑलरेडी 8 पेन है, सिमिलर आउटकम मिलता है. तो what I'm saying is that having enough financial buffer and savings allows you to sometimes take decisions without thinking too much, allows you to, live your life in a way where you enjoy. My niece is in Hong Kong, and few days back my sister said that uske school mein 10 din ki chutti hai. So without thinking much, I said, okay, I'll come, booked flight tickets and went. Now the cost of coming and going would have been some 60,000-70,000. 20 years back, I would have not even had the courage to think like that. But today, because there is enough saving, I can take such decisions. So it is in a way giving me the luxury to take choices and do things that I want to do. It also, allows you to take care of people who are working with you. People like, if today I feel nice to, see my driver has 3 kids, and, at different points in time, without him knowing, a part of his salary I have invested in, funds at different points in time. And there are times he comes and says कि अभी, बेटी को कंप्यूटर साइंस के लिए कॉलेज में भेजना है और लैपटॉप लेने बोला है, और लैपटॉप 70-80 हज़ार का आएगा, तो कहाँ से आएगा, इतना तो मेरा सैलरी भी नहीं है. So I know कि कहाँ से आएगा, because उसका सेविंग किया हुआ है. Or there are times when, like yesterday, he was not well and he said that he had to be admitted to the hospital. He said मेरा इस महीने का पूरा सैलरी यूज़ हो गया and I need 12,000 rupees. So without thinking too much, I can transfer the money, because I know कि ठीक है, मेरे जेब से जा रहा है, but I'm able to do something good for someone. who has worked with me for 15 years. So now these decisions in ordinary conditions are very difficult to take. So I think money plays a very vital role in helping us do good, which is why at DSP we have two taglines, be good and do good. So money helps you, wealth helps you be good yourself and doing good also. And to achieve this outcome of wealth, the first tagline is invest for good. So these are two simple statements that we genuinely believe in, that if you invest for good, it will allow you to do good also. And invest for good has a different connotation, that you invest for doing for goodness as well, not just invest for good in terms of time horizon alone. So I think these are some very loose thoughts. I've never thought what does wealth mean as such. But while you were asking this question, I was thinking about, the fact that you don't stress too much beyond a point about few things, about, medical treatment, about fulfilling your lifestyle choices, about your kids' education, about helping, other people wherever you can in your small way. Those are things that, end of the day, the currency of life is money, right?
Let's create a newbies playbook for investing. मैं एक 25 साल का, I am a 25-year-old working youngster. 50,000 से 70,000, 50 to 70,000 rupees I'm earning, और आज तक मैंने save नहीं किया है. In fact, we keep saying that you get your first check generally in India around 21, 22, and your first serious investment start around 28, 29. So I'm in 25, 26 stage. How should I start? If I have to call it my, you've spoken about that health matters to you. So fitness, financial fitness का एक journey है. तो उसको one-on-one क्या है? उसका शुरुआत क्या है for somebody who's never invested? Earning around 50, 60,000 rupees in Bangalore at a 25-year stage.
So I think three thumb rules that, first thing is take health insurance, because if something goes wrong with health and you don't have enough money, then your wealth journey gets compromised, because long illnesses sometimes can take it. So health insurance first, life insurance second, and at an earlier age, the cost is also lesser. And the third is start an SIP. That's the first simplest starting point. And I'll tell you why an SIP, because when you do a 20, 30-year SIP, 30-year SIP is equal to 360 months of investing. And generally over 360 months, there will be rising markets, falling markets, constant markets. So you will not get massively impacted if markets fall, because you have not invested all your money. Your money is still there to invest when markets are falling. You can accumulate more units at falling prices. So that's the beauty of an SIP. And now where to do an SIP? Because there are 800 schemes. So, at some point Jar will simplify. But if I have to answer, in one line, this is what I do for, my friends, kids who are just starting. And if they were to tell me, I will say invest in a fund, which is a flexi cap fund, where, it buys good companies at good prices. So a flexi cap equity fund, over a 10, 20, 30-year period, you do your SIP accumulation. So that's the first step. So health insurance, life insurance, SIP in a flexi cap fund, or SIP in an index fund. These are the 4 lines that I would recommend.
And how does this change if I'm 35 and I've never invested?
It doesn't change actually,
Okay.
because the whole objective of investing is to save money, a certain amount for your future. So at 25 or 35, the core principles don't change. The quantum of money can change. Your appetite towards risk can change, but the fact that you're doing an SIP is, evening out the risk. You're not taking any risk of a single point in time. Even at 45, these basic principles will not change. What can change is some context or nuance in terms of, what is your cash flow? How much money do you need as expenses? I don't have that information right now in your question. I'm assuming all else being equal, if your horizon to invest is 20, 30 and 40 years, then this is a good starting point, and the starting point will not change, because these are core principles, and core principles don't change just because your age has changed. If you want to run a business, you start your own business. Whether you will succeed or not, odds are not in favor. Base rates say that very few people can build successful businesses. So one way to own a business is invest in other people's business, and a mutual fund allows you to do that. So today when you buy an equity mutual fund which is investing in 30 companies, it is giving you ownership in 30 great companies of the world. It could be Indian companies, could be global companies. It's allowing you to have some of the best businessmen work for you at 1 to 2% management fees. And that is what mutual fund investing is all about. If Jar is listed, and my son will be 25 hopefully by then, he will be, instead of building Jar from scratch, he's taking advantage of what you've built by buying your shares via, let's say, my mutual fund. So today, HDFC Bank, Infosys, TCS, Apple, Amazon, the iconic entrepreneurs and businesses, it is like you are, running those businesses and taking advantage of them without having to run them. So that is what mutual fund investing is all about. And number two, you have a choice that if you feel that in the next 5 years, technology companies are not going to do well and healthcare companies are going to do well, Amazon cannot sell their business and start a healthcare company tomorrow. But you as an investor can flip by, reducing weights in Amazon and buying a Cipla or a Sun Pharma.
Where does Kalpen Parek invest?
So as I invest everything in mutual funds for two reasons. One, because it's simple, it's highly tax efficient, it's very liquid, 24 hours I get my money back. And as a CEO of a mutual fund who is preaching to the world that you should invest via mutual funds, for bringing authenticity to my message, as a rule at DSP, we invest our money only in DSP mutual funds. And it also brings alignment of interest with our investors. So I invest across various mutual funds of DSP. In the past, I have worked with 3 other organizations. So some of my, around 10-12% of my money is in those mutual funds. And the balance amount is in my mutual funds in different categories. But broadly, I invest in a mixture of equity and hybrid and global funds. Because I am of the belief that when markets are very expensive, I prefer hybrid funds which have some cushion of fixed income. And I also like to invest in best businesses, available outside the country. Many times they are available at cheaper valuations. So through a mutual fund, we can also buy. Like one of my favorite fund is a fund of ours where the largest holding is Berkshire Hathaway. So we all have Warren Buffett's books behind us, but most of them are never read. But at least uska stock be available hai. It is the most expensive stock in the world in terms of price, but you can get it cheap through a mutual fund. So that's again the virtue of mutual fund, that it allows you access to all these underlying instruments. And then I have around 7-8% of my portfolio in gold bonds and gold mining companies, a fund which invests in gold mining companies. So it's a risky fund. I don't advise others to do it, but on my own money, I do take some type of risk like that.
सर जा रहा है आपके पास?
Lena hai, after hearing the type of work you guys are doing, so I will download it today.
Okay. Can you recommend 3 books which can teach the basics of finance to somebody who wants to get started?
Okay, so in Indian context, there are 2 authors whose books I have found very simple and explaining the basics very well. So there are 2 books written by Monica Allan. The recent one is on mutual funds. So just Google for Monica Allan and her 2 books. And then there's another author called P.V. Subramaniam. He has written a book on book saying retire rich, or save 100 rupees every month and you can still retire rich. So they give very practical ideas around building a good financial plan. So these are 2 books from a actionable breakdown point of view. 2-3 books that help from a decision making and a thinking ability point of view. I like this book by Rolf Dobelli called The Art of Thinking Clearly. There are some 9,900 decision making errors that human beings have. So he explains them in 2 pages in a very simple and interesting way. And what type of hacks can you have to minimize those errors? And over time, you realize that most of those errors we make even in our investing. So that book has helped me massively reduce my decision-making errors in investing or even in business. So it's a very valuable thinking framework that has helped me. And yeah, I think these 3 books are good from a starting point. A very popular book is what Morgan Housel has written, The Psychology of Money. But I find उसके बहुत सारे free blogs हैं जो उस किताब से 100 गुना बेहतर है और free है. But किताब पे 300 रुपया होता है तो बहुत ज़्यादा valuable लगता है. So his book is The Psychology of Money. But anything that he has written is very meditative in terms of thinking about money and thinking about investing. And his reading has taught me this concept that I mentioned, that the world is uncertain and we impose our artificial certainty, and that's where most wrong learnings happen. So reading his writing has made me realize that so much in the universe itself is randomness. The fact that human race is existing also is a stroke of randomness. And when we make our investment decisions, we assume that, I know what I'm doing. I know the future. I can forecast the future. Overconfidence. Most of us are very overconfident when we invest because we assume that we know the future. Whereas this reading balances it by saying that, most things are unknowable. So it balances you in terms of, again, your thinking and helps you not be overconfident at the wrong end of the cycle, and thus helps you minimize losses. So again, everything I'm trying to converge around पैसे में accidents avoid अगर करना है तो कैसे कर सकते हो. So these books have helped me in forming some of my learnings. And lastly, there are a lot of people today in the world and in India who share their thinking and their experiences in free of cost. तो we should read a lot of these blogs. So Howard Marks जो भी बोलता है, वॉरेन बफेट अपने लेटर्स हर साल पब्लिश करते हैं. इतना आसान नहीं है सब पढ़ना इतना, but they write in very interesting language. Their books are very interesting, their letters are very interesting. So someone who wants to pursue this further and become a deeper investor, those are things that he can do.
आसान रील्स है सर, वॉरेन बफेट को रील्स बनानी चाहिए 30 seconds की. Thank you so much, Kalpen, for
Thanks for your patience.
It's been a long conversation, but I think we can go on for hours and hours listening to you. We have a small memento that we would like to give you from Jar, and also we want you to write a message on how was it meeting us, or anything, a message, and put this back in the jar.